All right, so Politico has this piece I wanted to share with you here. Red states hopeful for a second Trump term prepare to curtail Medicaid. Biden revoked Medicaid work requirements when he took office. Republicans are hoping for their return. There's been a track record here. There's been a history of this that I need to share with you. Back when we got Obamacare signed into law, part of Obamacare was what's called the Medicaid expansion. It basically made it so that the income threshold for Medicaid would be raised so that there would be more people who were in the middle class who would be able to access Medicaid, which would get them health care. And this all went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, sorry, but you need to give states the option to opt in to the Medicaid expansion. And if they don't want to opt in, they could say, fuck off. We're not doing this. And what happened? It was either every red state or almost every red state said, we're not going to opt into this. So they literally just put a middle finger up to all of their lower middle class citizens who needed health care, who would have been able to get it. All they had to do was say, we're in. Didn't require anything else from them. They said no. And as a direct result of that, millions of people lost their health care. Well, now, this is a very, very similar story to that. Very, very similar. These Republicans want to bring back work requirements, but you need healthcare even if you're in between jobs, even if you're unemployed, you need healthcare. Well, they think, no, you're not worthy of it unless you're currently employed. Okay, let's dive into this. Republicans in half a dozen states have a request for a second Trump administration require low-income adults to work for free government healthcare. In places like Idaho, Missouri, and South Dakota, GOP officials are laying the groundwork to substantially overhaul their health safety net programs. Their plans, if approved by a Trump White House, would cut hundreds of thousands of people from a program that conservatives have long complained is bloated. But the move could also save states and the federal government billions of dollars. Here in South Dakota, we value hard work. For those who are able-bodied, we want to incentivize work, not government entitlement. As if having health care is like, oh, you're a real parasite. You're a real moocher. You look really entitled there. Getting your liver medication, bitch. This is what we're talking about here. Said South Dakota Senate Majority Leader Casey Crabtree, a Republican, quote, we want to be in a position, should there be a change in the White House, and hopefully there's change that we can implement that. The Trump administration authorized 13 states' work requirements, which tied Medicaid to employment. Though only Arkansas got off the ground. More than 18,000 people were removed from the rolls in that state before a U.S. District Court judge blocked the program in 2019, and the Biden administration revoked states' approvals, effectively stifling efforts nationwide. In other words, the Biden administration came in and said, we're not doing work requirements for health care if you're poor. We're not doing that. Sometimes you're unemployed, you still deserve health care, okay? But the Supreme Court, which never heard the issue, has since added another conservative jurist, and that gives some Republicans hope that their plan, if approved in a second Trump term, would prevail. Quote, I do think the Supreme Court is more favorable to uphold work requirements, said Ohio State Senator Steve Huffman, the Republican chair of the Senate Health Committee. So look, let's not get it twisted. If it goes to the Supreme Court, they're going to side with the Republicans. And I need you to stop and think about how insane it is that this is what Republicans are thinking about right now. They're like, oh my goodness, I really can't wait for Trump to win so we can kick more people off of healthcare. Hooray! This is insanity. It reminds me of what's been happening with all of these red states recently, where there's this new program at the federal level where they will fund schools to do free meals for kids in the summer, right? It's a way to try to help out families that are struggling financially. Kids got to eat. So there's this program like, okay, we're going to fund you to be able to have lunch in the summer for free. Federal program. Well, guess what? A lot of the red states took a look at that program and went, we're good. So, well, hold on. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to do anything. It's just about feeding kids from low-income families in your state in the summer. That's all it is. It's just like, hey, here's a sandwich for little Bobby. Republicans looked at that and said, we're going to go ahead and opt out. We don't want the money. We don't want the food. we think little Bobby should suck it up and find a way to get food in his own belly. These are kids, man. These are kids that you're punishing for the economic situation their parents are in. What are you doing? What is this? And guys, it's a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face. It's a real wake-up call. And this is something that we're reminded of every time we see the specifics of what the Republicans are chomping at the bit to do. Because, you know, there are moments, we all have these moments where we look and we're like, Jesus Christ, these Democrats are just Republicans. They're just acting like Republicans. They're doing Republican things. I don't see any difference whatsoever. And to be fair, on certain issues, that actually is factually correct, right? Like, I'm not sure what Biden is doing on Gaza. I'm not sure it'd be any different from a Republican. In fact, I think that what the Republican would do, any Republican, is they would drop the tap dance and the fake finger wagging and the "we are against the civilians being killed." I think they would just be like, I don't give a fuck. You go ahead and do whatever you want, right? So it'd be like the same policy, just more upfront about how barbaric they are. It's possible a Republican would actually go further and say, you want to nuke Gaza? Go ahead, be my guest. But there are some issues where it's like, you're just acting like a Republican. You look at these Democrats and you see that. And then there's issues like this where it's like, oh, nah, there's a difference. There's definitely a difference. What you're saying is one of the things on the Republican agenda, the second they can, is let's take healthcare from more poor people. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. And then that reminds you of, look, at the state level, there's been a lot of good work done recently. You know that. Minnesota is the best example. Tim Walz, the governor, he had a 1-seat majority. What did he get in Minnesota? Universal free school meals, legal weed, carbon-free electricity by 2040, tax rebates for the working class up to $1,300, 12 weeks paid family leave, 12 weeks paid sick leave, banned conversion therapy, brought red flag laws for guns, universal background checks for guns, automatic voter registration, free public college for families that make under $80,000 a year, a ban on forever chemicals, $2.2 billion increase in K-12 school funding, sectoral bargaining for nursing home workers. You have people like Tony Evers in Wisconsin, the governor there, where he increased public school funding for the next 400 years by doing this line item veto where he just moved a decimal. It's like, sorry, you guys just funded public school and increased for public schools for 400 years. Mega-based. And that's where you really start to see the differences, right? At the state level is when you really start to see the differences. And God, the fact that they're chomping at the bit to just cut more people off healthcare. Imagine looking at this disgusting world that we're currently living in. And the first thing on your list is to screw over more poor people. And these are usually the people who consider themselves Christians. They're the most Christian, right? Spare me. Please spare me. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.